not only that I'm going to roll around in the mud, I am going to actually break a few ribs. And I actually had to take him out, literally.
Oh, wow.
It is like blasphemy for them if you say anything against UAE or KSA or MBZ. I don't want to call it a podcast. It was that little ambush. The more India tries to bully itself into the contendership of the big power of the region, the more China helps Pakistan. That's the bigger game being played. Every woman in Pakistan has been affected by a jinn in my last generation.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Welcome to another discussion that we have with our special guest, Brother Sahil Adeem. You may have seen our 4-hour discussion where we got into many topics in politics, Islamic history, and feminism. And I am honored to have Brother Sahil here again. As for those of you who don't know, who didn't watch our discussion, Brother Sahil is a public intellectual who has global reach, global influence, mashallah, who speaks about many topics related to politics, psychology, poetry, philosophy, and mashallah, it's always a pleasure to have him for these discussions. Thank you, Brother Sahil, for coming. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for having me. This is always an honor. It's a big thing for me. Yeah, I wish you can see, your the whole mission that you're on from my eyes. MashaAllah, may Allah keep you like this. Please don't thank me. The honor is mine.
Thank you. So let's start with talking about one of the issues that a lot of people are talking about these days are Muslim influencers, the da'i, the du'at, the people who are online. And there's a lot of controversies that come up over the news cycle. And this is something that I know you have thoughts on because you have a certain model and image of what a proper Islamic influencer or activist or public intellectual should be doing, should be saying. So what are you seeing recently on social media that has caught your attention?
Well, actually, I have a context an angle which is way more serious than a regular Joe, because my whole movement, my mission, my bigger reason for waking up every day is IMS. It's called Islamic Messaging System. It's a community which we're trying to build globally for all Muslims to come in together and do 4 things, which is ground yourself in the Quran and the Sira, with the moral capital coming together and having its worth represented really well in front of the world so that people can follow suit, and we can represent the Quran the way the Sahaba did to the planet of that time, because of which we are all Muslims. And the second pillar is the mental capital, raising the IQ of Muslims, understanding the the whole universe, the way it works, the science of it, and understanding the spoken word of Allah Azza wa Jal, which is the universe, and writing papers, understanding the bigger laws that govern the whole system, understanding the other dimensions through which the angels and the divine beings are setting the whole pillars upon which we actually carelessly move through on daily lives, not understanding why things are happening and how things are happening, most of all. And the third pillar is the financial capital. I need Muslims to come in together and make, become so confident that our products and services, our inventions, and our technology would actually be independent of those big global imperial vested interests that most of the big businesses are sitting upon. And so Muslims can have their own money and become independent of any kind of blackmail at a global level, ranging as big as NPT to as low as a regular Muslim man, depending on any kind of his on the financial aspect in his domestic affairs, being so busy in this petty little chase towards this American dream that he's divorced the Quran altogether. And the fourth pillar is the political capital, so that Muslims can come together from every corner of the world, especially in those places that matter, where politics actually calls the shots on the Muslim lands, in America, in England, France, Germany. Uh, Unless Muslims are competent, Muslims are coming together, Muslims are creating good influence, credible word is spoken by the Muslims, written by the Muslims, and written in the right places, the right time. And once they have the credibility, have the financial capital backing them up, the mental capital, uh, getting this brand, this brand's health registered around the world, people are not going to follow Muslims towards the Quran or to the Quran. The Quran is uh, independent of the Muslim character. Quran is what Quran is, but we are the people between the rest of the world and this book. And that's why most of the world does not understand what a marvel this book is, and how the Prophet ﷺ, through this one book, uh, created a deeper revolution, which actually affected billions of people in generations and generations over just 1,000 years. And that's my mission. So this is the context through which I actually see things, and how I am able to measure whether a Muslim speaker, influencer, an effector of any kind of sorts, of a bigger change in the Muslim mind, especially the youth, girls and boys, if he's not carrying himself correctly, he's not grounded himself on the deeper fundamentals of Islam and understanding the emotional intelligence of all of this, then he's going to be reeking with biasness. He's going to be doing exactly what any other speaker of any other realm would be doing, making mistakes of that kind, which is going to devastate because if I do wrong physics, it's going to be wrong physics. No one's going to get affected by that. If I do wrong biology, I might just kill a guy. But if I do wrong Islam, it's going to devastate everybody, and not just here, but in the hereafter as well. So I have a very sharp, uh, instrument. This measure has to be very precise and very accurate. And these words that I actually urge people to listen to would require a lot of gravity, so that people would know that listening to a motivational speaker, listening to a physics teacher, listening to a chemistry teacher or history teacher is not as sensitive as to listening to a theologian or a Islamic speaker or a pastor or a rabbi. That's a totally different ball game altogether, because now we're actually talking about the deeper systems inside the psychology. Belief is as deep as it can go. And if you can actually affect that, and you can change that or alter that, then either it's the biggest victory or it's the biggest failure. So when I see especially Muslim speakers, and I see a lot of other speakers, I speak to rabbis just about once or twice a month, and I actually scout them out so that I can actually try and get to know how they think. I speak to pastors and bishops, and I speak to Christian speakers, theologians, professors. I do that a lot because of my occupation. I do not see that kind of a problem, which I see in Muslim speakers, because we have this certain unique tradition that only the zealots had in the time of, uh, the Greek invasion of the world, and the Jewish side of things. And now we have it, and we're so bound by this chain that we forget the fact that we're trying to service Islam. Most of us actually end up falling prey to servicing some guy, some clergy, some certificate, some sanad. And instead of pleasing Allah Azza wa Jal, we're trying to actually score points in some school of thought, some chamber where a lot of scholars are sitting, and they're gonna evaluate me based on their belief system rather than based on the instruments of the Quran. And that's the problem, which is way bigger than any other problem in any of the subject matter with speakers and influencers.
Well, I have my critiques of scholars, and we talked about this in the previous discussion, but yeah, I'm a big critic of a lot of the speakers in the Western world because so many of them are agents. Like they're either knowingly agents, like literally they're getting a paycheck, or they're not literally getting a paycheck, but they're still serving a foreign agenda against Islam. Like they're liberalizing Islam, secularizing Islam, adding feminism. A big issue that we had in the US was that you literally had imams, conservative, they consider themselves conservative and traditional, but they're promoting LGBT. They're saying that, yeah, we need Muslims should support many LGBT rights. They're going to marches and they're, locking arms with LGBT activists and priestesses and wearing their, rainbow colors. These are the things that, I was very critical of because they're showing a face of Islam that is compatible with a political agenda, a left-wing, liberal, secular political agenda, and this is hijacking Islam. This is hijacking it in the eyes of many Muslims. An entire generation of Muslims in the West has been liberalized because of these efforts by these figures. And more recently, I've been very critical of Wahhabis and pointing out that their teaching of Islam is also serving a political agenda. Agenda that serves some of these Gulf countries, and by proxy Israel and Zionism. And I've demonstrated how exactly this is the case. So they're agents and they should be criticized. But I make a distinction. I think that sanad is important, like sanad, isnad, like having a connection to the Islamic tradition. Like this is something necessary. Just to push back on what you're saying, and I'd like to get your reaction to this or your rebuttal. But when you have you mentioned rabbis, you mentioned bishops and pastors and priests, what is so weak about them? What's so weak about their dawa or their preaching is that they just make it up as they go along. They just make it up, and they just will, according to whatever political ideology or whatever whim or desire or trend or fad, they just make it up as they go along. And this is why their religion has become distorted over time, why they've deviated over time. It is exactly because they don't have an anchor. Nothing is anchoring them to the source of their revelation, the original revelation, whether it be Moses or Jesus or the true prophets. They have abandoned those teachings, and they've distorted because of political pressures or whatever else, social pressures. And that evolution hasn't stopped until today. Even today, we see the same thing. So if we follow them down the lizard hole, if we also put less stock, less concern in the sanad and the connection, like a true anchor to the teachings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then we're gonna follow the same destruction. We're going to follow the same deviation, and that's what we see. Like my main critique against these imams who are promoting LGBT, they have all kinds of arguments. By the way, they would cite hadith. They would try and make these arguments that Muslims should support because Islam is about equal rights for all. And I would say that, look, first of all, this is clearly going contradictory to the Quran. We have the Prophet Lut alayhi salam, we have the story of his people, etc. And okay, but let's put that aside. Who in Islamic history, who in the Islamic tradition has actually had this perspective? Because clearly there was homosexuality at different points in history. And as the Muslim empire expanded, it came upon people who did have these kinds of deviances and fawahish. But the scholars didn't say, or the Muslim authorities didn't say, we have to give them equal rights. We have to give them equal rights to do their liwat, or to do their their behavior. They prohibited that. They prohibited it on the basis of, we don't want to have the same result for us that came to Qawm Lut. So by citing that tradition, by citing that history, that's very important. Like that is something that no one can dispute. No one can argue with that. No one can say. They have to admit, we're bringing something new. We have some new ideas here about how to accommodate these disgusting people, and Muslims reject that. And that's a good thing. Muslims will reject that. Whereas in the Protestant church, or even the Catholic Church, or many of these Jews, they just embrace. They say, yeah, we have a way to accommodate this. We don't have to take the Bible literally, and we can. They change because they don't have an anchor. They don't have a connection to a tradition. And when we debate them, why I do these debates, right, with Christians, I will point to, well, you have these interpretations that are not based in the Bible, and they're not based. No Christian before you has had this view. When it comes to, for example, marrying a female at age 10 or 11 or 12 or 13. Now they have a very strong view. Oh, this is pedophilia. This is wrong. This is, and I point to them. No other Christian in your history has had this view. Jesus didn't teach this. Jesus didn't teach this. The Bible doesn't teach this, but you have such a strong prohibition. Why? And the point that I'm making is that it's clear that your religion has changed. Like, you have devolved, and this is proof that your religion is false. Whereas Islam, we don't have that problem. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, generally there's a bigger pressure on them because of wherever they are preaching. That's same thing happened to me in Canada. I used to actually have a lot of problems with the imams of the masjid, and why are you purposely ignoring or omitting certain things? And they were pretty clear. They're not doing it subconsciously. They were consciously doing it. And they had this little premise set up in their mind that our tabligh, our dawah is predicated upon our, stay in this land. So if we can't even stay here, no one's going to preach them. So we got to preach them as much as we can under the conditions that we are in. I said, well, then you tell me, what is the meaning of this verse of the Quran that they purposely wrote with their own pen in the book of God, or they believe in some ayat, they do not believe in some, or they purposely omit certain things from the book of God. These were the Jews who used to do that. So what's the problem? Jews had the same problems ever since they're there. They've had, they've been oppressed everywhere they went. So they never changed their dawah. They were pretty clear about what the Torah says. Now all of a sudden, Muslims, since you guys are in America or England or Canada, you're trying to make sure that you give a different version of Islam, all because that's the only play that you have. So I'd rather have all of them not in Islam than to have all of them being on the wrong Islam. For example, in Africa, I'm sure you know that the bigger Islamic movement in Africa was not Islamic movement. It was the Qadiani Ahmadiyya movement. And they were going door to door in the name of Islam. So what's the difference between Muslim clerics in America giving a distorted version of Islam and that Qadiani Ahmadiyya movement in Africa? And that's also a distorted version in the name of Islam, right? So where do you draw the line was my bigger question. And they used to rebuff this because I was, one of those guys who comes around in the masjid at the prayer time, gives them a problem one by one. I was, shut out from just about every masjid in my place, and I had to just be quiet because can't just stop going to the masjid. But this is, for example, you see a clear violation of Islam, clear, and everybody knows that, even they know it, that UAE is not UAE anymore. It is UAI. And since Israel is actually not only giving the security of UAE, but controlling the political affairs and decisions of UAE as well. So it's like Egypt, you know. So somebody else is controlling Egypt, but here Israel does not even mask its strategy, its plan. It's practically this. I don't know how or why, but Netanyahu is so proud of UAE openly. Usually he hides this kind of stuff. Usually he plays it. Maybe he wants these people to be, ridiculed all over the place. I don't know. So
Yeah, it's weird. That
so
was the news that came out for people who don't know. Like, is Israel's government announced that at the beginning of the attack on Iran, that Netanyahu made a personal visit to the UAE and met with the king there, or met with MBZ. So this is a big, and then the UAE came and denied it, and they said no, they're lying, they're lying. So these are like allies, like. So it's weird. Like, is Israel deliberately trying to sabotage the UAE, or are they trying to force the UAE to make some kind of move? And because they know that this is going to have so much backlash against the UAE. Already there's so much backlash, and this
well,
just makes it so much worse.
I've studied Netanyahu's psychology as much as I can. I have enough data. There's a certain limit as to where he's going to carry his rapport for whatever vested interest he has to protect his ally. After that, he's not going to care. He's going to, because if it comes at a price where Israel is going to suffer at any level, he's going to divorce the ally. And this is what he's done with UAE, because if he even tried to protect MBZ by concealing a lot of things, it would have backfired on a lot of other levels, because these people are in bed together in terms of business and a lot of financial affairs. And I'm not just talking about Netanyahu and MBZ or MBS. I'm talking about their families as well. So you need to understand there are a lot of angles to this story. But regardless of whatever Netanyahu is doing, we know what MBZ is doing. And regardless of what MBZ is doing or MBS is doing, I know what Muslim clerics from there are doing and why. That's why I was watching your last podcast, and a million times you had to ask a simple question. And this guy who was trying to be Dr. Phil for some reason, asking, stating universal truths that listening, patience is a virtue. Listen, I'm going to give you your turn. All of that stuff was flying around from his mouth, except Dr. Phil was hesitant to answer a simple yes and no question. That why the hell, and I'm purposely using, you didn't say that, I'm using it, because I need this pun registered in their madkhali minds, that why the hell are you not condemning this little bathroom of Satan himself called Dubai in UAE, because you have a vested interest. Maybe someone's pointing a gun to your sister or child or daughter's head somewhere in some desert. Not that you're big enough for this event to happen. You're just a little, guy roaming around whatever country that you're in. You are trying to please somebody else, which is a scholar who is going to certify implicitly, not even explicitly, because these people are not even muftis, some implicit consent that they're trying to chase, that, yeah, you know what, you did a good job. You lived up to the standards that we've already set. These Khawarijis and Ikhwan al-Muslimin guys and these Rafidis, they are on a certain agenda. And that's what that's their go-to statements. All of a sudden, everybody becomes an Ikhwan or a Khawariji or a Hizb ut-Tahrir or Al-Qaeda or a Rafidi, because now KSA or UAE is becoming like the barometer, the instrument. Either you're with UAE or you're not. And I just told you, I speak to a lot of rabbis. You know what they actually because I was trying to get into the psychology of these rabbis, and I'm trying to purposely draw this parallel here. Everyone who's listening, you need to go research how the rabbis think so that you would know the problem in the Muslim scholars. The rabbis who are actually calling Persians, Iranians, Gog and Magog right now, according to Ezekiel 38, they're actually writing Ezekiel 38 on every wall of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, graffiti, and official government campaign, Ezekiel 38, because they want to, because Persia by name is mentioned and Gog and Magog is mentioned, all of a sudden Gog or Magog became Gog and Magog, and both of them became Persian, which, by the way, is not true from the Bible, because I have read the Torah 100 times. So they're using this word Persia, putting the premise in the minds of the world, especially the Jews, that we're justified. And you know what the instrument they used? They say, and I'm quoting Jeremiah here, at the time, the only test would be the love of God for Israel. So either you're going to be in love with Israel or you're going to hate Israel. That's the justification that they have, that people of hell will be cursing God of Israel, and people of heaven, the chosen ones, will be defending or advertising the bigger promise that God made to Israel. And this is their deeper belief. So it's like a insulator. You can't argue with the guy who's already made up his mind that, you know what, if you're going to curse me, you are the guy from hell. And if you're going to love me, regardless of why I curse you, or whether I curse you with a reason or not, regardless of why I love you, whether I am biased towards you or not, this is their instrument to check whether the guy is a guy from heaven or the guy from hell, chosen by God himself. So once you train a child on this psychology, that child loses every ounce of critical thought or thinking in the rest of his journey, and he's never going to be able to come towards the truth. And I'm talking about the Jews by design, because I'm trying to go into the deepest system of the Muslim mind, because Jews are not going to listen to this podcast. Muslim will. And Muslims, they already know that this is such a disgusting way of looking at this. This worldview is as corrupt as Qarun or Fir'aun. So if you have that kind of mindset, nobody can argue with you. And this is the same mindset of all the Arabian scholars who are thriving in Arab, that if you call something, say something against MBS or MBZ, you are a heretic. You are a deviant from, you are the guy who's a Kharji. You're a Kharji, or you're an Ikhwan, you're this and that. They have made UAE an instrument. It's like we don't even use this instrument for the Kaaba. They use this for their countries. And I was listening to another podcast with this Arab guy that you were, debating with. And this Arab guy
He's not Arab. Which Arab guy?
The other guy, the Saudi guy, who was claiming that if in order for a Muslim to become or remain a Muslim, you have to love KSA because you got to do Hajj. And this guy, this is as zealot as it gets. This is the classic Jewish belief. So I'm thinking they're not reacting to you. They're born into the system. They're reacting to the whole planet, the whole universe. So it's in their own minds. When the angel of death is going to come in, he's going to say, do you like UAE or not? And that's the first question, in the grave or the day of judgment. That were you with MBS or MBZ? Or did you say anything against MBZ or MBZ? It's like blasphemy for them. Literally, it is like blasphemy for them if you say anything against UAE or KSA or MBZ. And that's how deep it goes. So when you're going to ask a million times the same question to these guys, they're going to actually be saying, A'udhu billah, because they're actually invoking the deeper system of their belief, because you're committing blasphemy in front of them. So you need to understand why they resort to universal truths. That's what I call them. That patience is a virtue. And they make this poker face when they say these kind of things. Wait your turn. You have to have some empathy. Where are your manners? all of these things are going to come at you as soon as you're going to challenge their gods, the little gods that are stored in cells that they're worshiping. And that's why I drew this parallel between those Jewish rabbis who are the influencers and speakers in Tel Aviv right now, in America and everywhere in the world, and these Muslim speakers. They're suffering from the same virus, same disease, different people, different places, actually different places, not even people.
Yeah, some of the imams, they might actually be Jewish. Like, it's not unheard of that they have secret agents that they send, and so that's not beyond possibility. But yeah, I mean, this is a case of live by the sword, die by the sword. So a lot of them, they have benefited from these Gulf governments, because the Gulf governments, they spend literally billions of dollars over the decades funding preachers, building masajid, printing material, hosting websites. This is their Dawa, the Gulf Dawa, and they have enriched themselves through this. You wouldn't believe some of them, the kinds of cars they drive, the kind of watches they have. But if you live by that, then you're also going to die by that, because when those governments start making these horrendous decisions contrary to the interests of the ummah, when they start allying with Israel, or they start allowing the United States to use their land, their bases, or their airspace to attack Muslim countries, you can't say anything. You can't criticize that. You can't actually break rank. And then you get discredited. The same audience that you've cultivated all these years, with hundreds of hours of videos and lectures and khutbahs, all that audience is going to see you for what you are. You're a hypocrite. You are a palace scholar. You are someone who's compromised morally and Islamically. And this is what they're suffering from now. And they deserve it. They deserve to be discarded. They deserve to be insulted. And this is like a historical pattern that we've seen as well, when scholars, they compromise Islam for their own pockets, for their own fame, fortune, their own access, because many of them, they get first class access to Mecca, Medina. They get first class access to Dubai, to all these resources. And they've been enjoying that. They've been benefiting that. You think, me or yourself, like, we get that kind of treatment, or that we would be allowed to have that kind of access? No. No, they won't even necessarily grant a visa, for me at least. So this is something that has been exposed, and as people have said, that October 7th really exposed everyone, showed your true colors, and that's what I've seen it up close and personal. So it's interesting that you caught that ambush, or you caught that discussion. But yeah, did you see the reaction of people? Do you see the reaction of his own audience?
No, I didn't. You know what? I don't even know which platform are you guys actually interacting. Is it because because it was
YouTube.
certainly a public platform. Oh, it's YouTube.
Yeah.
Oh, so how did he get a third person on YouTube? Because he got a third. I don't know. I was kind of intrigued by how is he getting people to come in different screens? Because it seemed like a Zoom screen or whatever. But,
yeah, it was a Zoom screen. It was a Zoom screen, but it was being streamed to YouTube. I was streaming it on my own channel, so I think he didn't realize that. He didn't realize that I was streaming also.
I'll just give you a little. Well, I'll give a little advice. Because I go through, because you know what? At least these Arabs get first class, good treatment. These Pakistani Matkalis, they don't even get that, and they're still, considered blasphemy if you speak against MBS. I mean, these guys are like.
Well, he's South Asian. He's not Arab. He tries to look like he's Arab, but he's not Arab.
Well,
he's Pashtun. I think he's Pashtun. He claims to be Pashtun.
No, I mean, that's a wrong claim. He doesn't. That's by far. Trust me. That's from the obvious patterns, because Pashtuns are like a totally different race altogether. So what I was about to say was that I think you're making a mistake by recognizing these, because I know, because you know what, whenever I am in front of the camera and some guy is trying to gain some attention because of whatever reason of his own personal gain, I can't just walk out. That'll give them a lot more teeth. But I learned it the hard way that instead of just running away, you need to just instead of shutting them down, you got to shut yourself down. That I'm not even going to reply to you. But you have this tendency, this natural tendency, this that you're going to have to reply. There's this little gangster in you, so you reply to everything everyone has to say. Now I mean, I do that a lot. I'm not saying that. You know what? I I I have. I'm not speaking from any higher ground here. Okay, I'm just speaking as a psychologist. That I've learned it the hard way. That now there are tons of podcasts where I'm not even answering, and these guys on TV had to shut the program down because I just started staring at at the camera without saying anything except yeah, okay, is that right? And they're like, no, no, we asked you a question, and I said, yeah, I know. And so, what do you think is the answer? So I'm just giving them their own medicine that you're not. Uh, I'm not gonna recognize you, give you worth more than what you deserve by recognizing this question as a question. So because there's a smaller price that you're going to look arrogant, but it's not arrogance. It's a chess game you're playing. Because by the end of the day, the effect that you might be risking is that you are as vile as them, even though you're not. But since you gotta, because we're boys, we gotta take that. I mean, we gotta hit. Uh, we gotta. I mean, I'm lost for words because
Yeah.
I don't want to use gangster lingo here, but
No, I like the word I use is like rolling around in the mud. So some people, they don't like to roll around in the mud. Like, so you have these people who are trying to drag you down. They want the clickbait, they want the reels, as you said earlier. So they want to drag you down. They want to play this game of confrontation or insult. And some people, they avoid it. They don't like it. They want to keep everything respectable and above board. But I actually enjoy rolling around in the mud. Like, that's the problem. Like
that's why I said you have enough
I
of.
want to get in there. I want to
No,
get
I
in
understand
there,
that.
and I want.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's so
It's
visible.
not good psychologically, right? That it says a lot
No,
about my
it's not good for.
psychology.
It's not good for. I'll tell you a true story. Maybe 3 years ago or 2 years ago in Ramadan, I was on live TV. It broke the internet in my country. That program, and it's a 30 program, right? It's every day at Iftar. 2 hours before Iftar, I was on the biggest channel, and there was this caller in front of me, right? And before the program, I had to prepare of where I'm going to draw the line because this guy was sent by his, clergy to poke at me, and by design. I mean, he was making sure that he gets a reaction out of me. And in the first 2 3 days, I kind of noticed it, and 4 or 5 days, I went back to my team and I consulted, and I said, you know what? Not only that I'm going to roll around in the mud, I am going to actually break a few ribs, literally, so that I can actually change the archetype of the boy, the man in front of the boy in Pakistan. Because in Pakistan, there's this certain culture that was set by these politically correct folks, very liberal, politically correct folks, that unless you have a soft tone and you are very composed, you're not stating the truth. Now, this was not in any other culture that I've ever been, and I've been in 8 different countries throughout my life, practically lived in 3. So this is a culture in Pakistan. So I went with an experiment, literally, wrote down on the board pros and cons of whatever I'm going to do, and I actually took that guy out of the studio just to give him a few. Literally, I told him on live TV that, you know what, this answer I'm going to give you right out of this, after this show, and let's just take it outside. And he thought I was just, this is a phrase. And he said, I don't expect this kind of language. And I said, this is not a language. I'm going to show you a few. And I actually had to take him out, literally.
Oh wow.
So what I'm saying is, I did this by design because I was trying to actually, and I knew the price. My team was like, sir, this can tank your whole mission. And I said, yeah, one guy has to die because I got to change the archetype, the definition of the man. These guys are just perverted now. These guys think that, you know what, a Muslim reaction is unjustified no matter what. And this is October the Ramadan of the same year where Palestine is hit. Same year I'm talking about. And I'm crying about Palestine. These guys are just trying to, strawman everything I'm saying because they wanted to protect the clergy and because they were not giving the fatwa that, that we need to pass a bill for the army to go to Palestine. Literally, that's what I was fighting for that year. Every screen I was occupying. So what I'm saying is I experimented rolling around in the mud, literally outside the studio, in the mud, dead in the night, after Aftar, with a real, representative of the scholar. And since this is an English program, most of the Pakistanis won't even know what I'm talking about. So I can say that openly here. So what happened was that I looked at the whole aftermath and did it really have that kind of effect? It didn't, because of course it's just one event, just 20 days, 30 days. It's not going to have that kind of, even though it was the biggest program that year. But when I saw your video, I was thinking, you're in a demographic where you're speaking to a generation, which is Gen Y and Z, where these girls and boys might not really like it if you go quiet or you shy away, even though everybody would know who's the weasel here. And he's acting like a weasel. He's practically coming out of a burrow, literally. And he's trying to attack your feet. And maybe this is a Gen Z thing he's trying to do for American or English demographic, that you gotta stay in the ring, can't throw in the towel. It'll seem as if I threw in the towel, even though I didn't. I chose not to reply because he was an obvious, evil intent, and everybody knew that. And I'm talking about that, the whole episode, not just that one person, the whole event. So I wanted to ask you whether you actually have a strategy, because I was sitting with Muhammad Hijab in England, and I practically asked him point blank, "Are you doing this on purpose? Do you do this?" And he said, "Yes, I do this on purpose." Because I gave him practically the same advice, because I wanted to see where he draws the line as to what he can say or what he can reply. Because we know the reply. We hold on to those words, on purpose, because the obvious reply to that podcast, if I were in your podcast, I would have, muted the third person and would have actually grabbed that host and put him to his place and then shut it down. Now, even if I didn't shut it down, most probably I wouldn't have shut it down, but I would have made sure that the third person is not even recognized. But you're going on a clear plan. You're practically replying. You're practically carrying a conversation, even though he was not carrying a conversation. He just wanted to get some answers and get some attention. That he asked a very intellectual question, and he's looking for that gotcha moment every single time he's going to open his mouth. So I wanted to ask, why? Why are you in the mud with the weasel? You got to be in the mud. You got to be with the mud with your own, in your own weight category. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because I know exactly what they wanted to do. Like, they wanted to say that, see our ideas. They know that they can't win in a straight up conversation with me or debate like a fair. They know the facts are not on their side. And they know that they have these major limitations in what they can say because he's politically constrained. He can't criticize these Gulf countries. He can't really promote or praise the Palestinian resistance, actually. And so that's a huge vulnerability that he knows that I'm going to exploit. So he can't have a direct conversation, a direct debate. So what he wants to do is to make it seem like my ideas are so weak that I won't be able to have a conversation with him. I'm the one who is going to exit. I'm going to be the one who has to run away. So he has to make the situation so intolerable that I just rage quit. I just leave the conversation, and then he has the ability to claim, see, he's scared. My ideas or my position is so strong that Daniel can't debate me. He has to leave. He has to leave. And so what if I bring on another guest or I bring on another person to talk? So what? Is Daniel scared of this other person? Like, that was his whole strategy. So my strategy was, I have to be more intolerable for him than he is for me. And that's just by bringing up the UAE over and over again. And that was my game plan.
I was kind of hoping you didn't say that, because you know what he's trying to get. He just wants to please his own tiny little circle of people that he's,
But he didn't. His own audience. If you look at the commentary,
no, I know his audience would know, but he didn't. So if you knew his intent, you can't play into his intent as well, because that's what you practically did. And you know what? Even if you started cursing him, it would have been justified. Not that I want you to, or anyone to curse. What I'm saying is, if you knew what his intent was, then that's one more reason not to reply.
No, I didn't know. I didn't know until I was there. I didn't know until I was in the conversation. I thought, look, I expected that we would have a conversation and it would be hostile. Like he gave all kinds of signals because it was his attack. He attacked me with a video, and then I responded in a very polite way. And I requested a conversation, like, let's just have an open dialogue, very respectful. And then he accepted it, but he accepted it in a way while branding the video as like exposed, and like that's how he branded the video. So I was thinking, okay, it's going to be a hostile discussion, but that's fine. Like I can have a hostile discussion and try to manage that. But him, like within 2 minutes, he brings in this third party, like this troll, and then I knew, okay, this is his strategy. He can actually converse with me in an honest, respectful way. He has to sabotage it. So these are his intentions, his motivations. I didn't know that until I got on the stream, and that's why it's a trap. Like that's why it's a trap that he set. It's an ambush. It's dishonest of him. But you have to manage, like you have to play the hand that you're dealt. So, but alhamdulillah, his audience was very opposed to him.
There's always the option to fold right there. Stay on the table, fold. No,
you lose. If you fold, you lose.
If you fold, you lose. That's the problem. You got to get over this.
I don't want to fold. I don't want to fold. I want to win.
Listen, you don't lose if you fold.
Yeah, you do.
You think you're going to be only dealt one hand? It's a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, it's only one hand. He's never going to do that again. Do you know how hard it is to get these people to be in a live confrontation or a live discussion with you? Do you know how many I've challenged? Do you know how many of these imams I've challenged? I've challenged so many. Anyone who I criticize, any of these imams that I publicly criticize, whether they're the liberal side or the Wahhabi side, I give them an open invitation. I say, come onto my live stream. I'll give you a fair platform. I'm not going to silence you. We'll have a discussion. You can rebut the claims that I've made against you. I give all of them that invitation. And only on 2 occasions, basically only 2 times, did anyone accept that. One was the ambush that you just saw, and the other one was another imam, like an American imam, Sohaib Webb, who actually we met in real life because he came to my city, and I had criticized him because he's one of these pro-LGBT imams. Like you wouldn't believe like some of the stuff that he's put out, extreme liberal. And then he came to a masjid in my city. My city is very big, so there's hundreds of masajid. But in one of them, he was like, "Here I am. Where is Daniel? Where's Daniel? He didn't show up. Daniel is scared of me." Like he openly challenged me. So I said, just wait right there. I'm gonna come. I'm gonna come, and I'm going to, because I didn't even know he was in town. I didn't even know. Someone shared the clip of him making this challenge. Stay right there. I'm gonna come. And then I went to that masjid, and first of all, even though he invited me to like have this kind of debate with him, the masjid said, no, we can't have this. So they shut down the venue immediately as soon as I walked in. Even though like he's over there talking trash about me on that stage, but I can't go and rebut that even when he's challenged me. Okay, whatever. So then it went to the street, like it went outside, as you said. We took it outside, and he was so nice. He was saying, "Oh, Azizam, is a Farsi. My dear." So he was trying to use sweet talk. Oh, I guess you're not so tough now. You're not so tough. So then we, had this engagement, and he got so angry that within 5 minutes he just left. He just like rage quit, and it was all caught on tape. But that was the only time. That was the only time before this ambush with this other guy that they actually faced up. Otherwise, they don't show their face. They don't actually engage me at all.
I know, and that's why
So
you're
the
so hungry.
opportunity,
That
when the
actually explains
opportunity
why
is
you're so
there,
hungry
I
to stay
have
in the
to
ring.
take it. Like if I fold, there's not gonna be a second chance. They're going to use that, you know, for the rest of my life as proof.
And what are you going to lose?
A lot.
See, that's the problem. Grab this virus and take it out. I'm telling you, this is exactly what I'm talking about. Listen, what I need you to understand, I'm hoping you know already, that the deeper, and in that session, I don't want to call it a podcast. It was that little ambush. Everyone knows that these madkhalis actually believe that Ahl Tashayyi are kafir. They actually believe that. They are never going to say it. A lot of times they're going to say it, but they're never going to say it on camera. Obviously, they say it. That's how I know it. So, and in Pakistan, we have books written on it. Okay, so it's not that it's a deep secret. They believe that Al Tashayyi or the Iranis are kafir. They actually believe that. So they can openly condemn, because that's exactly what I meant when I said that they're trying to please their elders. They're not trying to please Allah. They're trying to please their elders. That, yes, you raised a good son, didn't you? Am I doing justice to the throne? That's what their inner self is asking, literally, subconsciously, from their elders. And that's just one or two guys. They're not even as big as to, attend global conferences where they're going to be recognized more than 10 people. Their following is a little, a bunch of teenagers who are self-proclaimed students and scholars and wannabes, and they just think that, since this is a track, I'm also going to be part of the gang. And that's the tiniest gang in the world. I've seen bigger gangs in Spain dealing cocaine. And then the followings of these madkhalis. So what I'm saying is, once this guy since he believes that all Iranians are kafir because they're Shia, so he is not going to be shy about talking about Iran. As soon as you're going to say the same instrument, apply the same instrument in UAE, because in my opinion, I'm not a mufti, UAE became kafir once the American helicopters flew in from UAE to rescue their pilot from Iran. That makes any Muslim a kafir. That, you're thrown out of Islam if you are an accomplice to a non-Muslim crime against the Muslims, and they are not just accomplices, they're practically, doing it for them. So I am openly saying this because I know the instrument, and they are never going to say Shias are kafir, because they cannot be known as takfiris, because that's going to lose that little teenage crowd that they're actually trying to please. They're trying to raise those little hundreds of boys, not even thousands, who are, about, oh, you should recite Quran daily, my brothers. Keep your fasts 5 times a day. You got to pray. Be nice to your elders. That's the extent of their Islam. That's exactly what's going on in Pakistan with these madkhalis. We call them something else here. That's not a word. A jami or madkhali is not a word known to Pakistanis. I have been with the Arabs when I was in America, so I know how they think, how they're trained, how they speak. You can tell. But in Pakistan, there's a totally different, club here, and they're the smallest. That's the smallest firqa that we have. The firqa, we actually call them firqa. There are only 4 in Pakistan. They're the smallest, but they are literally on the same premise. They think Shia are kafir, but they don't say it. They keep saying, we cannot do takfir. We cannot do takfir. And the scholars write that, no, we cannot say Shia are kafir because they believe in God and the last prophet and the Quran and so on and so forth. But that's just political mumbo jumbo. They cannot pray behind each other. They can't even pray behind a Deobandi. Literally, the Deobandi cannot pray behind a Brahli. Brahli cannot pray behind a Deobandi. And they don't say it, but they on camera, but they say it in their masjids. So I know Shias are way far. Deobandi and Barelvi are still, in their own opinion, some level of Islam. Shias are practically kafirs in their books. So once this sort of belief system is seeping through his blood veins, he's not going to recognize any of your questions. If you say anything, why do you not condemn the UAE? He's going to go quiet. And he went quiet because on the other side of the plank, that's the Shia Iran. And he's justifying that, you know what, I was doing taqiyya, which they accuse Shias for, but these midgets are doing taqiyya all over the place. Whenever they ask a straight, and someone asks them a straight question, do you condemn MBS for those American bases that he keeps more precious than the Kaaba? He practically does a tawaf of the American base way more than the Kaaba, and that base is being used to kill Muslims all over the place. But no, not a word, because they know the other side of the coin is, a bigger enemy of sorts. And every time I've asked a Madkhali, do you not think that UAE giving not just bases, practically, airplanes and choppers flying from UAE to Iran, killing Muslims, do you not think that this kicks them out of Islam? You know what the most instantaneous reply is? Well, Iran does this with Russia and it kills the Syrians. What do you have to say? And I'm like, what? Okay, that makes them a kafir as well, for all I care. But why are you talking about Iran now? All of a sudden, you're trying to change the goalpost and color it, with Iranian flag all the time, even though your own team is scoring their own goals. So this is the problem.
According to their sheikh, like the main sheikh of the Wahhabis is Ibn Abdul Wahhab of the 18th century. And he has a work, Nawaqidul Islam, which are the nullifiers of Islam. And the eighth nullifier, famously the eighth nullifier of Islam, according to Ibn Abdul Wahhab, is allying with the kuffar and the mushrikeen against the Muslims. That takes you out of Islam, according to Ibn Abdul Wahhab, who they claim is their sheikh. Now, the context of what Ibn Abdul Wahhab is saying, why he is giving this statement, is because of he considered all the Muslims to be mushrikeen and kafir other than his followers. So anyone, because they were raiding and expanding. They took over Riyadh, they took over Najd, the greater Najd, and they were being opposed. And all of the people that were opposing them, they considered to be kafir, they considered to be mushriks. And so that was the justification for that eighth nullifier. Yes. But this, I don't do takfir of these governments. I don't do takfir of any ruler. I leave that to the muftis. I leave that to the scholars. But I mean, that is in their book. That is in the book of their most esteemed sheikh, Ibn Abdul Wahhab. So it's good to. I was trying to point that out actually when I was talking to this other Wahhabi in that ambush.
But they don't consider. That's why I'm saying they don't consider Iranis as Muslims. You know that, right? So this fatwa doesn't apply.
Yeah, they're just the Shia are what, kafir asli, like they're essential kafir or something.
Asli.
So
from the nas. Yeah, because every time you ask them point blank, why are Shia kafir? Oh, because they do tabarra to the Sahaba. I'm like, yeah, okay. So that makes them a very bad kind of Muslim, man, but not a kafir. You need to understand that. So the same rule applies on them. In their minds on us, if we do any kind of tabarra on MBZ. So they're practically, that's what I'm saying, you're committing blasphemy. You're going out of the bounds of Islam if you're saying anything against MBZ in their books. So, by the way, that's exactly why we call Madkhalis Wahhabis in Pakistan. We know. We just
that's the same thing. Madkhalis are a subgroup of the Wahhabis, because not all the Wahhabis are in favor of these Gulf governments. Because you have Daesh. Daesh are also Wahhabi. They're following the same Ibn Abdul Wahhab, but they are against some of these Gulf governments. But anyway, that's a bigger discussion. So staying on geopolitics, what is the economic situation like in Pakistan these days? Because we have this strait is being closed and there's a limitation and a lot of the exports coming from the Strait of Hormuz. So is that affecting Pakistan in any tangible way? Have you noticed anything?
Oh, yeah, for sure. They are practically shutting down the country at 8 o'clock every day. Everything. No commercial business allowed. Nothing allowed. We're Schools are going to be everything from 0 to 100, every single thing, 360 degrees. And we have such kind of corruption in the country that even this is an opportunity for the politicians now, and they're going to make trillions out of this. So that's going to affect, it's going to create a new vicious circle that the regular man is going to go into because of this corruption. So we might not be able to come out of this effect even after the world has even forgotten about it after a few years.
Trump also was in China, and he took basically all of his top secretaries, and he also took about 30 of the major CEOs, like Elon Musk, Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, basically these multi-billionaires, and they all went to China to meet with Xi Jinping. And that was interesting in and of itself, the fact that America has to go with this massive delegation to China and basically be it seems to me like bowing the knee, like this is who's the superpower here. It seems like there's been a reversal in roles. Now China is the superpower, and the US has to go and basically beg for some kind of economic relief from the Chinese side and maybe help with Iran. So what was your reaction to that?
Well, I liked the fact that Mr. Ping didn't come to the airport to receive any of them. But I don't really rely on China to have any kind of empathy for a regular Muslim country or regular Muslims, because it's any one of these countries' prosperity is not dependent on Muslim countries. So we're not even politically aligned with their our interests are not even politically aligned with theirs. We are in any part of the Muslim world, from Morocco to Indonesia, we have to come together regardless of China or any other third power that might just try to challenge America. Because you know what, these neocons, they, since the 80s, 70s actually, they've actually infiltrated just about everywhere for America. And they've actually, it's like, a pest that is in every part of the Muslim population, from their politics to their society to their TVs and their military resources, diamonds in Africa to oil in Arab to uranium in Pakistan. Every single thing is going to America. And that's classic neocon imperial objective. Now, China, did it challenge the neocon objective? No, it didn't. It absolutely did not. It does not have any threat to the neocon psychology. This American government is just playing the money game right now. Obviously, everyone is. I don't blame them for it. It does not really put them down from the number one position, because they're just trying to, grab any port in the storm right now, because they know the momentum is going to not going to break in just a meeting or a year-long war. It is going to break over decades. So they're using their leverage of such a, and that's why they took a lot of businessmen just to bully China that, you know what, we can actually affect your economy through because if you can see those businessmen from Elon Musk to every Tom, Dick, and Harry standing there, they're dependent on China directly, and China is dependent on them directly. They can pull off their business from China. Their production is practically done in China, most of it, if not all of it. So they're trying to play poker here, and they're just trying to make sure that, you know what, China is waiting for the river and the turn. Everybody's waiting for the river and the turn. This is just the flop. The Strait of Hormuz is just the flop. Bad cards for America. I get it. And I'm thinking like an American right now. So if you can see the flop, the cards are not good for you, but you know what you're holding. They don't know what you're holding. So they're just trying to show them a little bit of what America's holding right now. And comes the river, then the turn. China is aware that, you know what, there's a lot more still left in the game. So they're not going to just be hasty and just try and make big claims. And I wouldn't be surprised if China cracks a lot of deals, which affects negatively to all Muslim states, especially Iran, and especially the Muslim mind, our religious people, they're going to get a lot of deterrence based on this visit in less than a couple of years.
Do you think
I'm
China
sorry
is
for all the audience for using poker terminologies. Sorry, it's just a
poker?
force of habit. I don't play poker.
Do you?
Haram. Okay, it's haram. I don't want
Do
people
you?
thinking, "Oh my God, this guy's like really in the game and thinking Islam." So he's the other LGBT guy, and now this pro poker guy. I'm not pro poker now. I'm just using lingo that boys and girls know, so they know what the flop is and what the river in turn means. That's just the way the hand is dealt in poker.
Oh, river and turn is a poker terminology. I didn't know that.
First three cards are the flops, and second is the river. Third, fourth is the river. Fifth is the turn. Okay.
Oh. I didn't know that. I know the basics. I know folding, doubling down. I know royal flush. You know those terms.
Yeah.
So,
so let me just break it down then, because I thought you knew. So the first three cards are the current situation going on. Everybody knows what's going on, but the two hands that is dealt to every player are the cards that I said America is holding. Of course, it's holding a lot of things, because I know China and Mossad are not the same thing. China and KGB is not the same thing. China and CIA is not the same thing. But you cannot just undermine CIA's infiltration. That's why I said neocons are everywhere, because CIA is everywhere. More than 200 practical army depots and outposts of America everywhere in the planet. What do you think? This is a joke? Except China, right? And America's entry in China is only Taiwan, right? So the South China Sea and Japan are practically the doors towards China for America. So that's what I meant when I said they're holding these cards. And obviously, China is going to wait for whatever happens, because everyone's going to wait for whatever happens after the rest of the two cards, which means, if Iran and Russia, they actually do some substantial thing, because Iran is with Russia right now. Practically, Russia is in Iran. So, and I hope it stays a little more. So this is what China and America trip is all about, because as soon as Iran goes to Russia, and Vladimir gives a little more smiles than usual to Irakchi, Trump and Mr. Ping go a little closer, because by the end of the day, there are only three powers fighting for the same podium.
Do you think that China is as interested in cultural imperialism as the United States and Israel? Because I'm under the impression, and you're in a better position to speak on this because of China's involvement in Pakistan and the Belt and Road Initiative. But when the U.S. has this chip on its shoulder where it has to impose a kind of liberalization wherever it goes. Like, it's not enough to economically take advantage of the Muslims or even the South Americans or the Africans or the Aboriginals. It's not enough to just take their resources and steal from them. We also have to change their religion. We have to make them into liberal, secularized aristocrats. We have to make them into, we have to push this kind of cultural agenda. They need to be wearing blue jeans, and they need to like Hollywood, and they need to, their women need to go out and mix with men and sleep around and all of this. Like, they have this kind of cultural change agenda that's inbuilt, from the beginning of post-Enlightenment European colonialism. Does China have that same mentality? Like, does China want to, wherever it goes, get people to eat with chopsticks? Like, because the U.S., they wanted, the Muslims to stop eating with their hands, eat with spoon and fork and knife. But do the Chinese want us to all eat with chopsticks? Like, is there any kind of parallel there, or are they just a different mindset altogether based on what you read?
Not just read. I've lived in China, and I was working for China Mobile for 10 years. I've been in China for more time than a regular any other Pakistani, I guess. And I was not just a guy working for a company. I was at a very high position. So I was talking to and they're training us for leadership, right? So I was talking to a lot of very credible professors, and I asked them, when are you going to come out? And literally, because everyone was waiting for me. I'm talking about 2010, 11, 12, right? And then 13, 14. And uh, the classical answer in China is that that's not the plan. We don't think like, we're not wired like this. However, we know that they know that it's a need. They are going to run out of resource pretty soon because they're growing faster than any other country. So they're dependent on a lot of other resources. For example, oil in this case. But China has started to go into Africa way more than a lot of people know about. And I knew this because they had to show us wherever they're going anyway, because we were one of those places where they actually went, right? I was a Pakistani. China Mobile was in Pakistan. So, them installing themselves into England was stage 2. And I was actually one of those people who was in the English team. They were selected me for England to go for their English venture. And obviously not as a Chinese, not as an invader. I'm talking about very purely business in telecom, actually. So I asked them, is China coming out and are they going to do whatever America has done? Because I see every Chinese wearing blue jeans and skirts. Everyone's sleeping around, by the way. America does not do much. China, if it actually tries to change us into Chinese, we won't have a hard time because we already have Chinese because they're half American already. So it's not within their psychology to actually, and that's why they never did. You see the Greek, you see the Spanish, you see the Dutch, you see English, you see, the Romans. They went around the planet, and the Qing Ming dynasty was thriving at that time. They never came out of this place because that's not how they're wired in. But I know, and I actually studied with them, so and under them, this very side of politics and their intent, other than the yin yang. So they actually knew that there's this timeline. After that, we need to go out and we need to compete. Otherwise, if we cannot crush, we will be crushed. And they actually have this phrase in China for that. If you cannot crush, you will be crushed. Which means if they're not going to crush America, America is going to crush them inevitably. And it's not a fault of America. Whoever is the crushed or the person under the bulldozer, that's his fault to be under the bulldozer. So, and it's a common, it's not just a Chinese phrase. Everybody knows this, right? So it's a political agenda. That's why I said they want to see the river and the turn. The river and the turn means what Russia has to do or will do, and what's going to happen in the Caspian Sea, other than the Russia-Iran thing, and what's going to happen in Ukraine. That's what's going to determine what China is going to do, because only one of them are going to be calling the shots in Asia and as far as Central Europe. I'm talking about China and Russia. They're competing for it because they know the big money is needed. It's not a luxury; it's a necessity. They're not going to run a big country unless they put a lot of inroads inside Europe and Asia to get every kind of. You take for example the semiconductors. Imagine how big of a deal it became of a tiny little speck of a country in Taiwan, and it became like a reason for the World War III more time than we can count on our fingers because of this little resource that Taiwan has. And now we know what China was punishing. They gave this death penalty to what, 30 people last month because of this IT company sharing AI codes from China to Taiwan. So it's such a big deal. So they know that, what? They need the resource. They're dependent on, everybody is dependent on the resource. No one country has every kind of raw material homegrown within them, oil or fertilizer or whatever, you have for whatever they have to run a country. So for that, they need to crush. Otherwise, they will be crushed. It's that simple. So if they can't crush Russia, they know Russia is going to crush them. And I was watching this parade where Ping was, and I keep calling him Ping, with Putin. Putin on the Russian, I don't know what day that they were celebrating on the parade. And then they had to invite the Russians to see the Chinese parade so that they can actually, bully each other. That, you know what, you can't just take us for granted. And I think most Muslims don't really read into these kind of things. I inevitably do because I'm trying to do the math all over the place. So that's why I know that Pakistan is just or our we know we're just a disposable friend. As soon as they don't need us, we're not going to be that important. And I think such a decree of Allah Azza wa Jal that India is trying to gain a lot of traction in this race. And as much as it tries to gain traction, the more it's going to put China under pressure to help Pakistan so that they can dismantle India's, future thinking of any kind of plans. So that actually helps us. The more India tries to bully itself into the contendership of the big power of the region, the more China helps Pakistan. That's how we actually look at it. So that's the bigger game being played. I hope everyone who listens to it knows what's going on in Russia and China and what I'm talking about, so that we as Muslims would understand that these are not the places or the people that we can ever rely upon, because unless we come together as Muslims, unless NATO kind of body starts to happen within the Muslim countries, today is China and Russia. Tomorrow is going to be something else fighting for whatever a resource that we have or somebody else has, and we'll just be, cannon fodder.
Yes, that's very interesting. I guess moving on from geopolitics a little bit, I want to talk. I didn't get a chance to talk to you about this on our initial discussion, which is you're kind of known for this idea of portals and black holes and other dimensions. And this is something that is interesting to me. I studied physics, of course, and within physics, you have theoretical physics and general relativity, and there is this idea of wormholes, for example, or black holes. And this is something that's established in theoretical physics. The fabric of space-time can be distorted, or it can even be tears in the fabric of space-time because of a singularity or other kind of gravitational force. So how do you relate that to Islam? Like, that's the question that I had. Like, how is that connected to Islam, and how does that relate to Day of Judgment or end times? Like, what is your interpretation? Because this is something that some find controversial about your views. And I didn't really, I've read about it, but I want to ask you directly and understand from you directly. So could you elaborate that?
Sure. Well, first, the premise has to be set so that you can understand why I'm going to enforce upon certain statements of mine, and how important in my mind it is to actually understand these concepts, because it's a direct command of Allah Azza wa Jal to do tadabbur in the Quran, to do tafakkur. And in the Quran, we see so many places in the Quran where you see extraordinary events happening, which are, for example, in the time of Sulaiman Islam, actually literally inside the temple, the second temple, or the first temple, first temple, yeah. So he asked this Jinn Ifrit of how to get that throne of Sabah into in front of him, right? Bring it right here. So this is a literal ayah. I'm not rephrasing it. I'm not giving any translation. The word is literally how the Jinn says to Sulaiman Islam that I'm going to take as long as when what you take to stand up from wherever you're sitting. So it's going to take a second, no more than a second. It takes a second to stand up when a man is sitting. And then he looks at the other guy, which is a man. Allah Azza wa Jal calls him the man. He's not a jinn, because the jinn is known as Ifrit. Allah talks about the jinn Ifrit literally. And the man says this jinn is slow. He does not have the kind of technology I have, the kind of power I have, the kind of knowledge I have. So he actually, antes up Today is poker day, isn't it? So he ends up by saying that this Jinn is too slow. I can bring that throne. That and Ibn Kathir says that that throne was as big as this table that actually I'm sitting on. It's like 6 by 5. Okay. At least, and I know Ibn Kathir's opinion is not the final word of this, because this 6 foot by 5 foot does not really, it's not as majestic as, the queen of Sheba has to sit on that throne. It has to be a monumentous, grand throne. Okay. So, but it doesn't really matter. Even if it is a 5 by 6 foot table, doesn't really matter because it takes the same kind of science to bring a 6 by 5 table as to, because you can do that. You can bring Mount Everest somewhere as well, right? From wherever. So this guy says, I can do it faster than this Jinn. This Jinn seems to be slow. It does not have that kind of power, even though he's Ifrit, the big Jinn. So Sulaiman asks him, "Oh, how long are you going to take?" And he says, "I'm going to take as long as you say the time that you take to blink. I'm literally going to bring the throne in the instance that a human being blinks his eyes." And he does. He brings the throne right there. And Sulaiman says, "How do you do it?" And he says, "Because I have the ilmul kitab." So it's not a mu'jiza of a prophet. It is not a karamat. It is a regular thing that a guy does. Sulaiman says, that, you know what, whatever knowledge that you have, that knowledge works on the big law that Allah already has made. We have to give everything this kind of larger than life concept, this power that just like, if you look at a good looking baby born, you say, Alhamdulillah. You don't say, oh, good looking mommy, I guess you have, or good looking father. You say, Alhamdulillah. So he literally says that in the Quran. Allah narrates this story. And I'm going to give you more instances. I'm just talking about this central story of how human beings had that knowledge. So I've asked more than 100 scholars, prolific, renowned scholars, one-on-one, what is the meaning of this story? What happened here? And you know what they say? They say, well, Allah did this. Like, Allah did not do this. The guy literally said, I did this because I have ilmul kitab and this is Allah's word. When Allah does something, Allah says, this is my ayah. Ashab Kahf went through something, Allah says, this is my ayah. Allah did this. This man does this, Allah says, this man did it. So you know what these scholars say? These scholars say, and you're going to ask them, they're going to say, well, aren't you reading the whole ayah? Because Sulaiman says, Hada min fadli Rabbi. They actually, because of this, because every prophet says, Hada min fadli Rabbi, to any good thing that happens, they literally omit that very word of God. Allah Azza wa Jal, when Allah Azza wa Jal says, this guy said, I have ilmul kitab. This guy did this. You need to understand how simple this book is and how complicated human beings make it. That's why I relate these scholars with the Jews, because those Jews made the same mistake. And now whenever you see regular Muslims, actually this current wannabe scholars that I bump into, I use a totally different ayah on them. I use ittakhadhu ahbarahum wa ruhbanahum arbabin min dunillah. That you put your scholars on the pedestal of God, because your scholars are saying that this happened because of God. God is saying this happened because this guy had knowledge. Of course, God gave him the knowledge. Of course, God made the laws on which this knowledge works. But if I am drinking this glass of water, God is not drinking, na'udhu billah, this glass of water. I am drinking this glass of water. So I know this is a fadl of Allah that I'm able to drink this glass of water. But you and I both know where we draw the line. So they make a debate about Aqidah here. All of a sudden, they go into philosophy and all that stuff. It's just a little lie. He brought the throne of a woman in the palace of a man. 1,100 kilometers aerial distance in a straight line. 1,100 kilometers. By the way, that throne was in Ethiopia. Current day Ethiopia, ancient day Yemen. So from Ethiopia, that building flies into Jerusalem. And Nobody's talking about it. Now, what I'm not saying they're portals. What I'm saying is there are other dimensions through which these things can happen. For example, the quantum. For example, we do not know dimension. The we do not know dimension yet. The we do not know yet dimension is the biggest dimension where everything happens. And I'm okay with believing and understanding with the core of my heart, with all my Sharai Sadr, that there is this we don't know yet dimension which we can open easily after we have enough knowledge. We will get there, but we cannot say, no, there is no we do not know yet dimension, because whatever is happening in front of us is happening in front of us. That's all there is to the universe, because the Quran is totally against this concept. When the Quran says these jinn can see you from the places you cannot see them from, these jinn. So there are places these jinn are looking at us. This is a different dimension. The jinn is not in our dimension. That's why we cannot see them. Now, it's literally stated in the ayah. I'm not rephrasing the ayah. So where is this other dimension? It's okay. Physics will discover it. Maybe physics will never discover it. Who cares? My belief is dependent on it because the Quran says that there are other dimensions. Now, where are the angels? We do not know. We cannot see them, but they're right here and they're flying around everywhere. They're holding on to the whole system. Now, do they not exist? Of course they exist. Why can't we see such great entities? Grand entities. The Prophet said that the wingspan of Jibreel was from one edge of the horizon to the other, and he has more than 600 wings. Now, he saw Jibreel literally in his original true form, and we cannot see them. So when we know, the Prophet said that on the day of Miraj, on the night of Miraj, he saw 4 different rivers flowing from the 6th heaven, from the root of Sidratul Muntaha, and they flow on planet Earth. 2 of them flow in the Arab Iraq land. One is Dajjal Farat. One, I do not know I don't remember the name. It is dried off now. One is the Gihon Spring, and one is the Nile. These are the 4 rivers that are flowing from the 6th heaven, which is the Sahih Hadith of the Miraj. Nobody disputes that Hadith. The Hadith of Miraj is so clear. Now, these 4 rivers are flowing from the 6th heaven here. My simple question to all the scholars was that it is a tenet of my belief, because the Prophet says that. And it's very believable for me as well, because we know that there are other dimensions. And these rivers are flowing from the 6th heaven. My question is simple. This is not an angel. This is water. This is not a jinn. This is a physical entity, which is water. So it has to be visible somewhere, because we can see water when we look up in the skies, in not just through our telescopes, but condensed in our own atmosphere as well. We call it clouds, right? So we see water coming from the 6th heaven. No, we don't. So it goes somewhere from the 6th heaven, and then it appears from wherever it comes from within the planet Earth.
Yeah, I'm wondering I was wondering, like, what is the objection? Because going back to Sulaiman and bringing the throne, what is the objection? Like, couldn't it be technology? Like, why does it have to be a miracle? Like, why couldn't it be some kind of...
It's not a miracle, because we know Allah is going to tell us whether it's not a miracle or yes, or it is. Allah says it's not a miracle.
My point is though, like, either way, like, okay, fine, like, maybe your interpretation is more likely. Who would object to this? Like, what is the objection? I don't get it. Like, why would they say no, it has to be a miracle, it has to be something miraculous? Why couldn't it be technology?
Because they're wired into this little notion that if somebody talks about science within the Quran, they're bowing the Quran down to science. That's how ignorant and how obtuse these people are, because they can't even open their mind to a possibility which is literally written as is in the Quran, that this man brought the throne from Yemen to Jerusalem. Now, they call it mu'jiza of Allah. Na'udhu billah. They're actually making false claims to Allah. Okay, so that's why I decide. فَمَنْ أَظْلَمَ مِمَّنْ كَذَبَ عَلَى اللَّهِ. You guys are putting false claim on Allah. Allah says this guy did it. You're saying Allah did it. You know what I'm saying? So this is such a big problem. And since they're many in number, since they are wearing turbans, and since they're holding the Quran, which they don't even understand because of this ayah, and then all of a sudden I become a lunatic or a heretic or a, what's the word? A deviant.
Yeah, I think that because I've experienced this as well, like I think that it's a defense mechanism, because if you start appealing to science, then there are other areas of science that conflict with Islam. Like there are other areas of science that are contradictory to Islam. And in those, if you start giving science too much of a power or authority, then it's like you're undermining Islam. I think this is where I believe that they're coming from. Like my response to this is that, well, look, science is not the ultimate arbiter of truth. We don't put science on that pedestal. We acknowledge that science has its utility, it has its purpose, but it's not the ultimate reality. It's not going to tell us the ultimate truth. But that doesn't mean it has no truth or it has no connection to reality or the creation. Yeah, it does, but it's also fallible. It can make mistakes in a way that revelation doesn't. So that's how you deal with the the contradictions between science and Islam, not by just throwing science out completely or saying science has no applicability. Because this is what I imagine them saying is that, I point out these hadith or these ayat as well, because there's a kind of defense mechanism when you have a scientific critique of Islam. Here's science with all its authority and all these global institutions of science and all its power and success, and it's attacking your religion. You might have this response of trying to hide, like you're trying to shell, like a turtle going into its shell trying to hide because you want to protect yourself. You want to protect Islam. And so they create a kind of distinction or a dichotomy. They say, look, here's the realm of science. They don't want to disqualify science entirely. They say, okay, we accept science. It has its domain, and this is the domain of religion. This is the domain of religion, and this is the domain of science. So none of these can't mix. These can't be overlapping. And similarly, you have the dunya and you have the ghaib. You have what is seen and what is unseen, and you have to keep them completely distinct. And so anything that is mentioned in the Quran, like this throne being transported to Sulaiman, they say, oh, well, this is a mu'jiza. We can't acknowledge that this is actually could be something maybe scientific, or it could be some kind of technology. Because again, they're trying to make a complete separation. But as you're pointing out, there are many things that are referencing in Revelation in the Quran and Hadith that are visible or that are impacting the dunya, like the tangible world around us, like the malaika, the jinn is another example. The concept of barakah, like there's spiritual realities that affect us, that affect our psychologies, affect how we behave. You mentioned the rivers, for example, that their origins are in paradise, but they're visible in the dunya, or even Zamzam water, the well of Zamzam. Like these are things that it's more like, it's like an enmeshment. Like there are aspects of the ghaib and there are aspects of the dunya, and what the Quran and Sunnah are teaching us is that they're actually enmeshed. They're enmeshed. They interact with each other in a real way. And of course, like this can, for some Muslims, is very uncomfortable. Like they get very uncomfortable about this idea because they say that, well, science hasn't acknowledged this enmeshment, so that means it doesn't exist. Whereas in reality, you have to understand the limitations of science. You have to understand the limitations of the scientific epistemology, and you have to expand your mind to the metaphysical reality that does have a overlap between the ghaib, what is unseen, and what is seen. And that's the kind of picture or explanation that the Quran gives if you read it honestly. So I don't see a problem with the kind of interpretation that you're giving. Like Allahu Alam, like technology isn't like, there are many things that are like like Dhul Qarnayn in Surah Al-Kahf, for example. Dhul Qarnayn, like building the dam, building the wall to hold Ya'juj wa Ma'juj behind. Like, well, what is that? What is the material that it's made of? Like, it seems to be some kind of special thing. And he's not a prophet. Dhul Qarnayn is not a prophet, but it's a kind of material that when they try to dig at it, it regenerates. Like, it regenerates. The hadith is referring to this phenomenon. So they can't break through it. So, like, why should we assume that, oh, this is just something that is miraculous and is beyond, what we can understand? I think the other component of it is that you kind of buy into this idea of Western liberal progress, because people will read about, like, well, this transporting a throne from Ethiopia for 1,000 miles. We don't have that technology today. So if we don't have that today, that means it never existed.
Yeah,
it never existed in the past.
That's why I call them
but why? Why should we assume that? Why should we assume that maybe they had technologies, other civilizations, other time periods that were more advanced, and they've just been lost? Why do we have to just buy this kind of modern progressive narrative that we are the latest and the greatest? Everything that we have, or the modern science, modern West has created, that's the final. That must be better than everything else that has come before it. Like, why should we accept that? Especially when the Quran is giving us indications. And they're indications, it's not something explicit, but they're indications that there could have been these technologies that are beyond what we
believe. Because even, you know what, even your use of the word technology is you're gonna be ambushed a lot more now. Because you're actually, this is exactly what I keep saying, and I keep getting this deepest resistance. They're practically laughing with all their teeth out that, oh, science doesn't even recognize this, and you're saying that, you coming up with these concepts, and I'm like, who's bowing to science now? You guys are bowing down to science because your science doesn't recognize this, and I'm saying this possibility does exist. So all of a sudden, you're expiring here. I'm saying it's not physics right now. It's not biology. I do not know yet science. We do not know yet technology. We will get there. And that's why I keep referring to that hadith of Hajjatul Wada, when Prophet said that spread this message to the generations coming next. And those people will understand this Quran better than you guys. That's what I mean when I recite this very hadith in these very words of the Prophet, that they will understand it better than you guys. Because at that time, human beings will have progressed into certain realms of knowledge, which is going to make these kind of ayahs come to life in front of them. And that's why I get problems with the classic scholars, because they're just following the line. They're following the cue set by some guys.
I don't think it has to do with classical scholars, though. I think this is like a modernist reaction to the success of science and industrialization. But I mean, the other thread actually that's interesting, because the story of Sulaiman is so interesting in the Quran, because he was able to command jinn as well. He's able to communicate with animals. Okay, this is something else. And the communication with jinn, like, if you have the ability to harness the jinn as your personal army, as Sulaiman the prophet was able to do, alayhi salam, who's to say that there can't be the opposite, an evil force, the evil people on earth, humans, harnessing the shayateen for their purposes and being able to also have an effect on the dunya, having an effect. And then this gets into a little bit more esoteric, maybe occult, but maybe you've heard this idea of certain technologies being so advanced. Some have speculated that maybe jinn are involved. Maybe, like, even non-Muslims have these kinds of theories that, there are these technological elves, or they like people who are yeah, they're using like DMT, like they're using certain kind of drugs, and it like opens up their mind.
Yeah.
So
No,
then they're talking about like
true.
these.
Whatever. Yeah, I agree. And you know what? I don't really discredit them. I'm like, we could be. I don't know. The problem is, we are Muslims. We could have understood all of that, even if you don't want to use it. We could have, and we needed to understand all of that by exploring the Quran. Everything is going to be directed through the Quran of what can be happened, or what can happen, or had happened, or can be done about this. But no, we just do this Rosa, Zakat, Hajj, and Salah. That's it. That's your Islam. And, don't do anything against MBS. That's what the Muslim mind is.
Well, yeah. So I don't know. Maybe AI. Like AI is like it gets more scary every day. Like it gets more advanced, and so I have to wonder. And then you have like these disclosures from the U.S. government about UFOs. Have you seen these? Like
Oh,
these
yeah.
unidentified flying objects. Like, is this something that is just a psyop? Like, is it meant to just scare the public? They've just invented it, or like maybe there is some kind of Jinn reality. Like maybe Jinn do have these kinds of technologies that they're utilizing. Like, why not? Like, if human beings have technologies that they've developed, why couldn't Jinn develop technologies as well in their own realm? Allahu alam. So
Well, I don't want to carry this conversation on the Jinn topic because in my country,
you're seeing some right now.
no,
Some
no,
Jinn
no,
are coming.
I'm trying to shut down the wind direction. Wait,
Okay.
I'm not seeing anything.
You're like looking off camera.
No,
They
in my
showed
country,
up. They showed up in the studio.
yeah, it could be. No, no. I'm a Pakistani. Every woman in Pakistan is has been affected by a jinn. In my last generation, every woman you'll see, a jinn is upon her. We need more exorcists than husbands to get things in order. So this is why I didn't want to carry this conversation because Muslims, Muslim speakers and scholars are busy trying to get jinns out of women for the last 70 years in Pakistan, India.
Okay, well, yeah, we can continue the conversation, inshallah. But I think we covered a lot of topics, and I know you have to go. We have limited time, and I also have Friday prayers. So, but I really
Yeah.
enjoyed
Oh,
this discussion with
seriously.
you and a lot of highlights,
Me too.
mashallah.
Me too. I am gonna. I have a few very serious topics lined up for whenever you have time, because it's gonna. You know what? That's why I wanted you to start speaking at source code. Not just speaking, but training. But I have a few topics that my team also was looking forward for me to actually, discuss with you and go into a lot more detail pertinent to whatever is, the youth, the Muslim boy and the Muslim girl right now. And in your angle would really, because you have a natural tendency to to look at it critically, and not that I have any hardline opinion on those topics. What I'm saying is, I have a lot of things lined up. So whenever we can get more time, I would want to announce those topics so that people. And you know what? I wanted to invite live audience so that you can uh, interact with the Pakistani side of things, and mostly source code students, mostly IMS community, so they can actually get a direct taste of what your perspective is on things. And I mean, you rhyme so well with the grammar that the boys and girls here that I'm actually speaking to. So I wanted to harness your experience into their minds, and that's what I told my team. The next time, whenever Daniel is going to be here, I wanted live audience students, all source code students, to attend this, and they can actually interact with you, and that'll be such a good experience for all of them. So, because they're amazing questions, they're eager to learn, they're the most positive people, and boys and girls, women, mothers especially, who are raising boys in America, they wanted to know how to get, because atheism is one of the big problems in their homes, literally. LGBT is one of the big problems. They just want to get the boys and girls in their homes to listen to you in trying to, because you know what? Man who's there, you're there, you run the whole, ladder. They cannot ask you anything you don't know already about, how this culture is going to and affect, and how you're going to insulate yourself, and how to be on the path, be on a mission more than just a path. That's why I wanted you to be interacting with source code students and IMS community. So that'll
Inshallah.
be such an
Yeah, that'll
exciting
be
thing for me and my mates here, my members here in the source code and IMS. So whenever I can get a time, I'm going to announce this a week ahead, so that they can write down questions. We're going to send you the question as well, way ahead of time, so that you can get concrete, consolidated answers, so that we can get more questions in and live interactions there. That's my intent for the next session. Whenever we can get time, whenever.
Okay, yeah, sounds good, inshallah. We will do that and look forward to it. And it's always very happy to have a discussion with you, and we're going to continue the dialogue on whatever platform, inshallah. I'm sure the audience is going to have a lot of commentary, so I read the comments when we publish the video, inshallah. And any other
Oh yeah,
topics
this
that you
one's gonna
guys
have
want
a
us
lot of.
to address? We'll have a lot, yeah, inshallah. Any other topics that you want us to address on the next dialogue, let us know in the comments. But thank you so much, Brother Sahil. May Allah bless you and preserve you.
Barakallah feek. Jazakallah khair for having me. Thank you so much. Seriously, means a lot. Seriously.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.